I've finally leveled up, my friends. The internet officially hates me. I know. I worked hard for this. I'm just kidding. But if you scan through my recent comments, especially on TikTok, you might get that impression. Between being an industry plant, pregnant, a liar, and a fraud, I must have done something egregious. Now, what exactly did I do to cause such a ruckus? Did you guess? Talk about a movie that I like? Or share a snippet of a song I created? To this day, these are the two things that I have done that have caused the most pointed response, which I think is really interesting, especially since I wasn't anticipating any sort of negative reaction. And getting hate comments is nothing new. I've been doing this for a while and I've posted a lot of terrible covers. So, I mean, hey, I hear you. There seems to be a theme with not just the decentralization of creators or media or us consuming more individualized content, but I also think that there's a decentralization of where we are placing our virtue. And that's interesting. Let me explain. I recently saw the TV Glow and I loved it. I thought it was great. And as the attention-seeking lady that I am, I posted a little talk about it because I wanted to talk to others about this movie. Anyway, it wasn't even that good of a review because I wasn't expecting that many people to see it, but A24 saw it, then requested to sponsor that post that I had already created. And of course, I said yes. But something happened, right? Something happened when I got that little sponsored tag. Immediately, it turned from, ooh, yes, I also liked this movie or disliked this movie, let's talk about it, into you're a liar, you're a fraud, you're trying to fleece me. I don't think that was an actual comment, but that would be kind of cool if that was one of them. I love that expression. It's very accepted for larger groups or corporations to promote something quite obviously and honestly, but when it comes to the individual, doing so seems automatically disingenuous, which I can relate to these feelings as a consumer of content and media as well. But it's very fascinating how we tend to believe that individuals are more virtuous than groups, or at least hold a higher responsibility than a group of multiple individuals. Also, I stand by loving this movie. I find it really relevant with how media seems to be increasingly dictating reality rather than the other way around, especially in a time where more personal media and professional media, like that line is obviously blurring more and more. The people who are rising on the platforms that we used to see as more personal are inevitably becoming professional, but there's still some of that frustration of this is supposed to be a place where people just create and express for the sake of it. I think that's why there was so much outrage when there was that Mr. Beast challenge, and then Rosanna and said like, hey, this isn't what actually happened, but pulling back the curtain on motivations that maybe should have been obvious, but we still have like some level of disconnect as consumers, or we like to call out whether or not something is genuine. By the way, hi, my name is Kate. I am an artist, and this is my series called Kattle Considerations, where I like to talk about art, culture, and the internet, and just generally things I want to have a discussion around. But yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways we can inherently understand why we might put more pressures on individuals than groups. I think with groups, it's much easier to distribute the blame or rationalize the nuances that come with a decision or unfavorable behaviors or behaviors that hurt others because there's so many different people within that group. And this is nothing new, right? Herd mentality has always existed since the dawn of humanity. But I think this shift has always kind of been reflected in politics, but is becoming more widespread making an example out of celebrities, which I mean, in many cases can be justified. Don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't, but it seems to become more of a trend. So much of what we consume is optimized for retention and engagement. And unfortunately, a really cheap, great way to do that is to evoke outrage. I think there are a lot of creators or just people who fall into this situation, maybe not intending to do so, but I do think we are seeing more people who are willing to assume that risk of being, temporarily disliked or hated or whatever, because they know the people who do speak to whatever they're saying will respect them even more in the sea of naysayers. The spotlight feels like a figurehead for our shared yet decentralized values, and it's like, why else would we see entire news sections dedicated to the dating life of someone we entirely do not know, while simultaneously berating that very artist for talking or writing too much about those very relationships? There's a lot of disconnect between what we would like people to think that we click and what we actually click. And I think the easy way you can kind of pulse check to this is if you go to your Instagram explore page or your TikTok feed, anything that's algorithmically curated to you, particularly with pieces of content that are shorter or smaller or easier to consume, where the algorithm can pick up to you. How comfortable are you sharing that with someone? And what are the pieces within that explore page or whatever that trigger shame for you? Maybe you don't have any. Maybe you just have cute, lovely animals and fluffy, wonderful things and beautiful things. But I think some of us, all of us, probably have some things that we might not want everyone to see, or at least represent us as our interests, right? And we see all these allegedly fringe communities or thoughts seemingly come to the forefront, right? There's so much destabilization around the presidency, reproductive care, LGBT rights, and the rest of it, when, at least from my view, I felt took a couple steps forward and now we're just backtracking. I don't want to go off the rails. The news in particular has always kind of thrived on the economics of outrage, but the same patterns are starting to proliferate across socials, because if there's one thing for sure, rage definitely triggers engagement like none other. And some creators have started to utilize that. And so, I can kind of understand, even though on my side, it doesn't feel great to be called a liar or whatever, but I can understand how there's these very intense reactions to being duped or calling out the dupes. There's a couple of quotes in this piece by the Rolling Stone from this year on rage baiting, and one creator says, when someone asks me what kind of content I do, I usually say skits. Or if I'm talking about the restaurant videos, I say satire. I guess it is rage bait, but I don't want to say that. I realize that videos really blow up when there's controversial things going on in the video. This person isn't the only one manufacturing drama. TikToker Louise Melcher, who makes content about fictional tales and viral stories with her at the forefront. In February, her video claiming to be the black dancer that fell at Usher's Super Bowl halftime show got 49.7 million views. Wow. Rage can extend from videos about whether your boyfriend will peel an orange for you to political beliefs. It's a variation of all press is good press, but our current age is unique in that we are hosed with this content that I feel like the threshold for outrage is constantly shifting. As a result, I think a lot of us, myself included, can feel a bit overwhelmed and even helpless at times. I thought this was a really insightful little comment I saw on Reddit that said on rage baiting, it's a manipulation strategy that abuses human nature. We're only compelled to react with something when we get triggered at a certain point, be it in a good or bad way. And since all interaction counts, the path of least resistance is the most desirable. Even if this results in fake news, mass hysteria, mob justice, social divide, and a general decline in mental health and happiness of the population. The internet and its late-stage capitalist state of monetization has become a giant social experiment, and financially motivated actors optimizing content for quantifiable behavior patterns cause these results. The content we get is the content that sells. I mean, we all have a bit of like negative bias, right? So what makes you upset might be much easier to reach than what makes you feel inspired or loved or fulfilled in equal proportion. I want to make a whole video on this, but I think a lot about how you really have to fight to find the light in the world, and you have to fight to find patience and grace for those in your community and those outside your community. And it's not like comfort is not the default stage or state of the world. Anger can be addicting, right? Much like anything else, like it releases dopamine. That's why it might feel like temporarily good to say something kind of nasty to someone you love, even if it'll cause long-term damage. In that moment, something about that feels a little good. Anecdotally, a lot of my friends, who really just have the intent to get people to listen to their silly, our silly little music, blew up accidentally. The reason why they blew up is because people found something to disagree about in the comments. I have an incident from last year where I made a comment about my outfit looking like Lava Girl, and I had my song in the background, and people were very upset about that. And that's the only reason why the video did well. But I mean, it did lead to results in terms of people liking my song. And if I'm being honest, like, I guess that was my intention. I didn't think it would cause so much rage, but that's what happened. And, I don't think ends justify the means. My first little piece of virality on TikTok also was people just flat out just hating my voice. I had like multiple people making videos about disliking it, and I had so much shame I just ended up like deleting everything. But part of me is like, maybe I should have just kept it up there, because maybe a lot of people would have continued to be upset, but maybe people would have liked the song. So like, I'm not immune to maybe having some sort of perverse motivation. Leading up to the elections in the US, I've been getting more and more like TikTok live stream debates, which are really just people yelling at each other, which is interesting. But yeah, I don't really know what we expected when these apps are designed to monetize attention, and you naturally choose the path of least resistance, or a lot of people do. This is also another video. I feel like low-grade addiction to technology is kind of ubiquitous at this point. So much of the design of these platforms like keeps you in, not just with rage, but so many other things. And it's very telling that some of the biggest UX leaders and designers, people who engineer these platforms, wouldn't let their own kids use their own product. Like, there's something suspicious to look into there. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of things that deserve to be disliked and criticized, including all the things that I do. But I think it's important to, as a consumer, view things with a lens of what do we think the creator's intent is There's plenty of ways that you can set digital boundaries for yourself. I think it's really important to take stock of how you're reacting to certain things, even certain creators, and weighing the pros and cons of like consuming that content. And it's a lot to ask when, how are you supposed to have this little thinky moment when there's all these like bright lights and noises yelling at you and trying to evoke a reaction out of you? But I think the more you can build that sort of filter, the easier it is. Deliberately like curating your feed. I know people who even have like different accounts for different things. Like they want this one space or this one account to be dedicated to like viewing art or different projects, or this other account is more for funny stuff, and they like or interact with posts with that goal in mind. So that's also an interesting approach. And I think just on a broader note, it may seem small, but I think it's worth just telling people, whether that's in real life or online, like when you like something. I think it's so much easier or so much more commonplace to comment when you feel upset by something, or something is, which is, very fair and valid. If you have something nice to say, you should say it, because where's the downside, right? I think it's nice. I think we should try to be nice. That's my solution. Yeah, I don't know. I do think it would be nice if we all made a concerted effort to pay more compliments where compliments are due, because why not? Anyway, I would love your thoughts on any and all of this. Do you feel like there's a shifting scale of outrage? Do you think it's inevitable that we're all just going to be so overwhelmed and exhausted by how outrageous things are that we'll be pushed to more extremes, or we'll be off-put and pushed offline? Like, I would love to, honestly, like, the reason why I make these videos is, I want to make video essays and talk about things, but I just want to hear your opinion. Okay, it's like having my own little personalized Reddit thread, but I get to talk a lot. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think, and I will see you later. Bye.